Ember Witch. Book 1. The Lich. Volume 1. Black Tragedy. Chapter 4. Black Tragedy. September 19, 459 BME to October 31, 461 BME. Fragment 44. Under the Gods. His body was rotted, maggots and worms feasted at his flesh. The man once known for his rum now hung from a thread between life and death. Held on the precipice of eternal sleep and eternal suffering. The rotted flesh struggled to move as it scraped off into the dirt. Eve watched the zombie limp towards the fender boar that was tied to a post in the center of a dirt field.
It's slow, far too slow,
Eve said disappointed but firmly.
If I didn't have to track down the bastard, the corpse would have been fresher.
Dara replied as she leaned against a tree looking at her claws.
You were the one who killed him before you came back. This is entirely your failure,
Eve replied, turning around to look Vera in the eye.
He died on the ride back. It was a 3-week trip and he refused to eat. Not my fault he starved,
Vera said, still not looking away from her claws.
Do not fail again,
Eve threatened and walked away. The corpse finally reached the boar and began furiously tearing into its flesh. Vera looked up and observed the stinking heap of rotting flesh before her as it consumed the intestines. A heavy knock rapped against the large wooden doors. Luke, already in the entranceway, reached the door and opened it. The man at the door was wearing a dark uniform with the seal of the crown presented upon his breastplate.
Good evening, sir. Have you by chance seen this man?
The guard asked, pulling out a small piece of paper with a drawing of a man on it. Luke looked over the drawing with a deep fear.
I know of this man but have not seen him in over a year or more. Did something happen?
He responded after a moment.
I'm afraid he's missing and I was hoping the church may have seen him.
The guard said, taking the paper back from Luke and putting it in his uniform.
His sister reported him missing a week ago.
The guard finished and stepped back, relaxing his stance.
I'm sorry to hear that. I will keep my eyes open,
Luke said with a calm demeanor. The guard nodded and went on his way. Luke closed the door and made his way to his room. He sat down and began praying. He was shocked by this news. What could have happened to Gerald? He had such a promising career in the rum business with his mage brews. He wished that Syria was here. She would have some idea of what to do. Although they hadn't talked in some time, Gerald had been his friend. He held hope that he would show up soon, but with his duties to the church he was unable to go out and search. He would bring up his disappearance this coming Sunday and hope that the congregation would band together and help find Gerald.
I have slaved for years over this sphere. It cannot be done. It's a technical and magical impossibility.
A voice spoke.
Impossibility? Alyssa, I have witnessed the gods create this world. I moved land and sea to give you life, and I have created magic so powerful it destroyed the gods. Now tell me that it's impossible.
A second voice said in a commanding tone.
My queen, I mean no disrespect, but what you ask I cannot do. My powers are dwarfed by yours, your majesty.
The first voice spoke again.
That is unfortunate. I see 4 souls trapped in a never-ending curse. Sight, touch, mobility and life lost in succession.
The second voice spoke again. Eve sat up in a pool of sweat, her eyes failing to focus as her sleep was interrupted yet again. She stood from the bed and began to stretch out her color, but stopped as she felt the presence of Ares. She walked to the door, then hesitated before she moved into the living room. She peered into her kid's room to see Ares asleep on her bed as if the past few months had never happened. Lilith had been concerned after a week, however Eve didn't care at the time that her youngest daughter had ran away. She knew that Ares could take care of herself. What she wasn't expecting was for her to return so soon. Vera had been adamant in her argument that she needed the blood of Ares in order to perform one of the rituals, and Eve had to convince her that Ares would return on her own time. She knew that Ares had most likely contacted Syria and had run off to continue her training. Her plans could move forward much sooner now that Ares had come home. She moved back to her room, then began writing a letter. If she acted quickly, she would be able to send it off and reach Brenwatch within the week.